Now, moving on to a coaching hire last week that sent shockwaves throughout the college football world. You might think, depending on where you're at, maybe it was Rich Rodriguez who reunites with West Virginia. We kind of told you that could happen if you were with us last week. But the big mover last week was Bill Belichick taking the head coaching job at North Carolina. Bill Belichick, having coached in the NFL for 49 years, replaces Mac Brown, who at 6 seasons there in Chapel Hill had some pockets of success that were pretty impressive. But he was fired on November 26th. Out with the old, in with the new. Bill Belichick steps in. He turned 73 in April. Here's what I think not enough people are talking about with this hire. People are talking about, will it work? Will it have success? Will he do this? Will he win this? Can he relate to the modern player? Can he create a culture of competitiveness? All that's fine. Okay, all that's great. He's a great coach. No one's ever going to push back on that. And I don't know how comfortable he's going to be dealing with college players. I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that college players and the contracts surrounding college players very different from that of what you deal with in the NFL. So, for instance, you have a top flight wide receiver that goes out, has 4 great games in the first 4 games of the year. He gets, let's say, ACC player the week before the bye week. And then right there, the week of the bye week, he's played 4 games. He's going to go into the head coach's office. He's going to tell the head coach, Coach, hey, things have really gone well for me so far this year, but I could redshirt if you guys don't pay me what I deserve, and here's what I think I deserve. I don't know how Bill Belichick's going to react to that. That's a different world. That's very strange. And in the NFL, it's pretty cut and dry. You signed what you signed. You play for what you play for. If you don't want to be here, fine, we'll cut you, and you won't get $1 because you didn't do what you were asked to do. NFL is very simple like that. College, a little bit more complex because you not only have to deal with the player, but you deal with the player's family. You deal with fallout at the player's high school. You deal with fallout with the player's friends and losing guys on the team and how that could have an effect on you and the ripple effect in the locker room. That's also another area of interest. But the reason why North Carolina did this wasn't, I don't think, to go out and win championships, ACC title games, national championships. The reason why North Carolina did this is because they are now front page news. Just about every day I go on the internet and I can find some type of headliner story about Bill Belichick, what he's done, the player that he was able to lock down, the quarterback that he just locked down that was like the 193rd ranked prospect in the country. We're not writing that story if John Doe takes over at North Carolina. No one's writing that story. No one's reading that story. With all due respect to, say, John Summerall at Tulane, he takes the North Carolina job. They might cover the press conference, but I can tell you what they're probably not going to do. They're not going to cut away from SportsCenter and follow that press conference in its entirety with commentary on the front end and the back end. There's no disrespect to John Summerall. It's just an acknowledgement of how the media machine will rally around Bill Belichick. Not that dissimilar to the way the media machine rallied around Deion Sanders. In the time that he took over at Colorado, every single thing he's done has been front page news, to the point in which some people have been frustrated by it, which is fine. Feel however you want to feel. But you can't acknowledge, you cannot sit and tell me this, that Deion Sanders doesn't move the needle in one direction or the other. Bill Belichick will do the same. And while I don't think it's going to be quite the same, because I do think there's a phenomenon surrounding Deion Sanders and being prime and going about it in a different way with how he uses social media, with how he has a brash, no-nonsense, unapologetic way of leading his team. There is something about that that's very different. The media surrounding it, the television surrounding it, all these other things. But I do look at Bill Belichick and the amount of coverage that he receives. I could see it being somewhat comparable. I could see it being somewhat comparable, which is why I think that North Carolina will join a lot of the teams throughout this offseason as one of those teams that everybody's really curious about. I don't know if he's going to necessarily be as popular, and we won't generate at our show as many views off North Carolina as we do on Georgia or Notre Dame or USC or Ohio State. Like, we know the numbers, we know our algorithm, we know what programs we get the most viewership from. Alabama, Texas A&M. We know. Basically, we know what hits to play, all right? But what we don't know is how North Carolina is going to move the needle moving forward. And what we will figure out is that while North Carolina will probably be in a lot more shows between now and when we kick things off in Labor Day, but I still wonder if this is going to have a lasting impact on how North Carolina is covered. That's why they did it. There's no denying that. They're now front page news. But will it continue on the same way it continued on for Deion Sanders throughout the course of his first season? Because I remember when Deion Sanders started 4-0, it was great. They lose to Oregon and the wheels fall off. And the amount of viewership and interest that Colorado got down the stretch wasn't great. Would that be the same thing for North Carolina? Because I do think early on there's going to be a certain level of intrigue. There's going to be people watching because they're fascinated to see how it's going to work. If they end up 3-2 at the midway point, will you still be watching in November? That's what I think a lot of people are going to be really curious about. So we'll see. I think it's interesting. I think it makes sense because North Carolina is now front page news. But will they stay front page news? Probably not unless they have legitimate success.